Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello, folks. My name is indeed Avrum Rosensweig, and I am delighted to be here. You know, there are few works in the history of theater that have entered the emotional bloodstream of humanity quite like Fiddler on the Roof. More than a beloved Broadway musical, it is a profound meditation on family, on faith, exile, resilience, identity, love, and the fragile balancing act between tradition and change. Since its debut in 1964, the story of Tevye, the milkman, his wife Golde, and their daughters in the tiny Shtetl of Anatevka, has transcended culture, religion, language, and geography. Because beneath its deeply Jewish story lies something universally human, the longing to hold on to one another while the world shifts beneath their feet. Now, in a remarkable and internationally celebrated production presented by the Harold Green Jewish Theater Company, Fiddler on the Roof returns to the language and cultural heartbeat from which it was born, Yiddish. Performed entirely in Yiddish with English subtitles, this historic production arrives in Toronto's legendary Elgin Theatre from May 25th to June 7th under the direction of legendary Tony and Academy Award winner Joel Grey. What began in New York as a 6-week theatrical experiment became an 18-month sensation, earning major awards, standing ovations, and over 500 performances. Critics call it revelatory. Audience describe it as deeply human, hauntingly beautiful, and emotionally transformative. And at the center of this extraordinary artistic achievement stands Zalmen Mlotek, one of the world's foremost authorities on Yiddish theater and song, and artistic director of the National Yiddish Theater Folks Bina. Through decades of work preserving Yiddish music, storytelling, and theatrical memory, Zalman is a once Juilliard student who studied under legendary composer Leonard Bernstein, has become one of the great guardians of Jewish cultural continuity. His work is not merely artistic, it is civilizational. Today, we explore the enduring power of Fiddler on the Roof, the emotional resonance of hearing it in Yiddish, a language described by director Joel Grey as carrying history, humor, sorrow, and resilience all at once. This story, Fiddler on the Roof, continues to unite audiences across generations and backgrounds. The extraordinary life work of Zalman Mlotek, someone who has collaborated with Itzhak Perlman, Sheldon Harnick, and Theodore Bickel, and more, a man dedicated to ensuring that the soul of Jewish civilization comes to sing in the future. Zalman says the production is not simply about speaking Yiddish correctly, but about emotionally inhabiting the language and making the words feel authentic and alive for audience. Ladies and gentlemen, Zalman Mlotek, how are you?
Thank you, Avrum. I don't think I've ever been introduced more beautifully. Thank
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate you saying that. I couldn't get the words out of the name of the village, Anatevka.
There you go,
And
Anatevka.
I studied it. It's not a real village, is it?
No, I don't think it is.
No, no.
I don't think it is.
But
But you
but
know
but I
the
guess. Please go ahead.
no the 24 cast members who have been working, all non-Yiddish speakers that I
Yeah.
met sometime. We auditioned earlier in the spring, and I met really for the first time in rehearsal in April. I can tell you today, it's May 21st. We're about to open, and the Yiddish is is pretty perfect, and coming from their heart, every word, which is quite a feat. So when I hear you struggle with a word,
Yeah.
I'm dealing with it all the time. People are still struggling with certain words, but for the vast majority has gotten it, and has internalized and be able to present it as their
Would
own.
you say that a near perfect Yiddish is when, let's say, you go to shul and you meet a survivor of the Holocaust, and they have this almost street Yiddish, but it's so
Right.
expressive? Would that be the
Oh, yeah.
closest thing to perfect Yiddish?
I don't know, I mean, Yiddish has so many dialects, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some people will say, well, I don't understand the Yiddish that they're saying on the stage because my parents didn't speak to me like that. So, but we decided to go with a dialect that most people will understand. Most people, everyone who speaks Yiddish will understand, of course. And what's unique about it, of course, is that you have the screens on both sides. So as you're looking at the stage in your periphery vision, you have this English if you need it. And because everyone really knows the story of Fiddler so well, that you really find yourself not looking as much as you might in a French film, or French isn't the right example, of course, here, but a foreign film that people would need every word. So it's quite unique in that way.
So I think one of the challenges of a Yiddish play, Yiddish theater, for many is the idea that it's Yiddish. Yeah, like you're
Right.
saying, like I don't speak Yiddish. My friends don't speak Yiddish. But I think that we should say right at the top of this interview, it's actually the beauty of this presentation, isn't it?
Yes, it's not it's when I first had the idea, it was because of a recording that I heard in my parents' home when I was growing up of the Yiddish production in Israel.
Yeah.
It was a full orchestra. I mean, in '65 it came out, right a year after the American premiere, and I was so struck by the Yiddish because that Yiddish was my mama lashon, was this language I spoke with my parents. That I guess, growing up as a musician, it landed in my head that one day I would want to present it, but I knew that if I was going to present it, would have to present it on the same level that anybody has ever seen a professional production of Fiddler, whether it's the touring company here or in New York or wherever, or the movie, of course. So it took me a while to get my board on board, as it were, to and help me, raise the money that would be able to present such a production. And then I thought, well, who would be the best person to direct it? And I went to Hal Prince, the original producer, and I went to Sheldon Harnick with the idea to get their blessing for the idea of doing it in Yiddish. And both of them said, speak to Joel Gray for different reasons. And Joel, immediately after I spoke with him, and he brought in on his team, his Broadway team, to look at the theater, they realized that they weren't going to be presenting something a typical Fiddler here with a big set, with big with extensive costume changes, et cetera, et cetera. And they said, well, the key here is the language. The key here is, with the super titles, of course, is to imagine that you're in this time and place, and you're hearing the actual people saying it in their words. And so the set is very simple. I won't give it away, but the power of hearing it, because when you go to see Carmen and you want to hear it in French, you don't want to hear an English translation of Carmen or Traviata or Figaro or anything else. You want to hear it in how the composer conceived it. And here in this case, we have a translation that was done in Israel in the '60s by a survivor who was a director in Israel and a writer, and he infused the translation of the original Fiddler on the Roof script, Joe Stein and Sheldon Harnick and Jerry Bach, with Yiddishisms, with Shalom Aleichemisms, with references to Torah, with references to Shas and Talmud and stuff that makes it so rich. Of course, it's all translated all the time, but so for the Yiddish speaker, or the person who grew up hearing Yiddish, there's an expression, they're going to lick the finger. They're going to it's going to be so delicious for them. And for the non-Yiddish speaker, what you will see is magnificent performances of actors, of tremendous, the top Toronto tier of actors wanted to be in the show, and many of them are not Jewish, and
they're not Jewish. Yes.
Many of them are not, but they broke their teeth, and they spent hours internalizing it so that they could speak it in a way that was honest and special about it. I think.
Well, what's the sprach? What's the sprach that they speak? What's the accent? How did they go about learning it?
I mean, the way we did it was we made tapes. My colleague Mlotek Didner, who designed the super titles, which are nice and big, with Russian, by the way. It's Russian for your Russian listeners. It's also with Russian super titles. We made recordings of every word that they had to speak slowly, and then we sent them a recording of me singing the material, so they would hear the phrasing as well. This all happened prior to the first day of rehearsals. So they came in with having studied this for a month or so, since they were engaged, learning all this, and the commitment that they made, these people, on learning this, because they knew that this is what makes this production so special, the honesty of the production. And I have to say, it's this is really the first time since we produced it in 2020. We've done it recently as a concert version in California, but this is the first time we're remounting it again with our original Tevye, Stephen Skybell, and the company is just glorious. Really, each one brings something very special.
I think if we could give a character to different languages, as an example, French, which you mentioned, in my mind, I would see a very romantic person. Mm-hmm. If we were to give a character to the language Yiddish, what would that person look like? What would they be like?
There would be a combination of many things, right? Like Yiddish, like klezmer, like everything. There's a sadness, but there's a joy. There's a contemplativeness, but there's a joie de vivre. There's an inquisitiveness about them, and there's a cautionary, there's caution with them, but there's life in them, and I think that as you correctly are inferring, Yiddish is more than a language. Yiddish is a kind of way of being, in a sense. If a person who speaks Yiddish come naturally from his home, is infused with all sorts of other things that motivate them. I mean, I grew up, in a home where Yiddish was spoken at first, and I was brought up in the 60s, so I was a civil rights activist because I cared about people. You shared with me that you grew up in a home in a Banisha home where Gemilas Chesed, where Shabbos you would have guests, and your parents would open up their homes. That's something that we share as Yidden, that we have to offer the world. And for us to be able to teach this cast the idea of all that and have it infused in their singing and in their speaking was a gift for us, and I hope a gift to the Toronto community.
Your father, God bless his soul, excuse me, Joseph, he was the editor of the Yiddish Forward newspaper, a grand Yiddish newspaper. Your mother, Eleanor, also should rest in peace, Eleanor Chana. She became one of the great archivists of Yiddish songs. Are they in your heart? Are they in your mind as you go through this process with Fiddler on the
All
Roof?
the time, all the
All the
time.
time.
My father
All the time.
was an editor. He wasn't ever editor in chief. He was an editor. He also did a column. My parents were asked to do a column um, of favorite songs that readers remember. This was pre-internet, pre Facebook, anything. And they would ask in their weekly column if readers had remembrances of songs, a snippet here or a melody. They would ask them to send recordings. And my house was inundated, my apartment in the Bronx was inundated with envelopes, with letters saying to them, do you know this song? Did you ever hear this song? And my mother just reveled in this because she had an encyclopedic mind. Basheva Singer called my parents the Sherlock Holmes of Yiddish song because
Wow.
my mother could identify where a song was sung, who sang it, who wrote it, et cetera, et cetera. So I grew up in this milieu with this love of these Yiddish songs. So
Yes.
that's why when I first came to town, I got in touch with some of my Toronto folks, and I said, if you know somebody with a piano on one of my free nights, I'm there with, just leading songs. So they, the Friends of Yiddish here did organize something last week where I, presented songs and sang with them and stuff. But that's something that that really I got from my parents. So when you ask if they're with me, they're with me all the time. I appreciate. I know what kind of nachas they would have at the same time, and I also hear their critical thinking. About this little thing or that little thing, and I think I'm certainly guided by that sensibility, their sensibilities.
Well, what were they like as parents?
My father was very busy. My father was in meetings all the time. He was a klal tua, we say, somebody who cared about the community and cared about Yiddish and cared about the future of Yiddish. And he became the educational director of the Workman Circle, which had a whole network of schools. But he also published books. He wrote books. He published records. He produced concerts. He was involved with the Volksbühne, which I'm involved with. So he was very busy. But the time that I did have with him was precious
Yes.
and loving. He couldn't really speak about his time leaving from 39 to when he eventually got to Calgary in 47. He couldn't really talk about that whole period with us. Thank God there is some documentation of the journey, and we're finding things now. My mother, on the other hand, was born in America. Her parents came on the earlier immigration in 1910s, and Yiddish was her first language. So they courted in Yiddish and through Yiddish song.
That's fascinating.
So these were my parents. So how was it not possible for me to get that love of Yiddish song, in such a home? So, my mother was fiercely protective of me. Fierce, anytime somebody wrote something not glowing about me or a performance that I did in print, she had her eyes out. It was a loving home, and dedicated to Yiddishkeit, very much.
Have you? Do you have siblings? Do you have siblings?
I do. I was just going to tell you. I have a younger brother who is a success. Who's an attorney and now a successful businessman, but never lost his love for Yiddish. He sits on my board. He sits on other boards. He's extremely generous person with his resources and very inspiring to me because of all the good work that he's done.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if proverbially if you've met Tevye and his wife Golde, have you met them?
Um, I've met Jews who are, or people, who are committed to learning and have a relationship with, the Abishta, God, in a daily way, and I know people like that, and I know women support the work and learnings of their, learned husbands. I think what the genius of Shalom Aleichem and then Joe Stein and everyone else is to have made these people human, and that is why the the phenomenon that Fiddler on the Roof is the most produced Broadway play ever written, and there hasn't been a day since 1964 where somewhere in the world, whether it's a high school production, amateur production, or production, adult production or professional, it hasn't been presented anywhere in the world. That's perhaps in COVID it stopped a little bit, but after that. So we're talking about the famous story is about when Sheldon Harnick, the writer, the lyricist, went to Japan for the opening in Japan, and they couldn't understand why it was such a success in America because they said it's such a Japanese story. So I think we've all met people who are committed to their beliefs and have a relationship with God in some way, and that's what makes Fiddler so universal. That yes, this production is very special because of the Yiddish, but it's you see those issues, and those universal issues of parents and mothers and tradition being changed and broken all the time. What culture isn't dealing with that today?
You mentioned God. God is actually a character in the play. Um, how would you describe God sitting in front of the cast? How would you explain God to the cast?
Um, you know, I use the term high. I use the term things out of our control. I think I talk about the goodness in their hearts. I talk about the goodness of their parents and their families, and I say that's where you'll find God. The connections that you make with people, the honesty in which you live your life, the good things that you do in your life, the going out of your way to do good things. That's how I think of God and how it informs me in my daily activities.
Did Tevye love God? Did he have a relationship that was good with God?
I think it was one of those. I think what we see is a struggled relationship with God.
Yes,
I think
yes.
he asks God. He doesn't understand. He says in the his opening song, he said, "You made so many poor people." And no, it's no shame to be poor, but he says it's no honor either. He says, and he dreams. So he has this constant dialogue with God, but God is with him all the time. Even when he decides he has to sit shiva for his daughter.
Yes, yes. Well, what's your relationship with God?
It changes. It changes. It's I think it's I try to live my life in a positive way. I try to uh, do good things. I try to be. I try to to use my time wisely in this time that I've been given. Um, every time I speak to any of my children or my grandchildren, I see God. I see God's hand. I'm blessed with a partner who brought me three beautiful children. My wife is a occupational therapist, and that and God is in her work also daily. So while we go to synagogue, and we observe the holidays. I wouldn't call myself a deeply religious person so much in that way, but I do feel myself connected.
So you come to Toronto, which is a unique city in of itself, has its own character, own type of personality, um, and you were very lucky and very skilled to put together a wonderful cast, as you said, um, and to work with the Harold Green Jewish Theater Company. A little bit about it. It's dedicated to illuminating humanity through a Jewish perspective, using live theater as a powerful meeting place for storytelling, culture, and human connection. You've had many, many partnerships throughout your career, and I'm sure we'll have many, many more. How is it working with the Harold Green Jewish Theater?
I think they're doing an amazing job in getting the word out to the street. I
Yeah.
think the biggest challenge is exactly what you said earlier. I don't understand Yiddish. Why should I come? So that's the overriding challenge. People as soon as people will see the show, they will understand why those non-Yiddish speakers have to come, because there is something happening in Toronto downtown for 2 weeks that hasn't happened before. I venture to say. The Harold Green, they say it themselves. They've never produced anything as big and as grand as this before, and so I think once people will see it, that word of mouth will start to happen. I think it's a challenge because it's a lot of seats to fill. But thank God there's a great interest, and it's growing every day.
Is there any concerns whatsoever
You
about
know, welcome your concerns. I
is there any concerns whatsoever about
didn't hear you.
security? Yes, is there any concerns whatsoever about security?
I'm pretty sure that there are they have plans in place to deal with anything that might come up. Um, we haven't mentioned it. It hasn't been mentioned in our meetings at all, except for that to know that that they are committed to making sure that there is no issues. But uh, the response has been very positive. It could be more. I mean, that's why I'm taking an hour to talk to you, in the
Yes.
hope that your listeners and your connections will be so inspired to take a look at what's going on downtown.
Do you suspect that there will be a large contingent of non-Jews who will come to the play?
I hope so. I really hope so. I mean, I think that once the theater community and the TV and movie theater community here gets word of it, of has besides seeing all the raves in the world, whether it's the L.A. Times, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, the raves, are great to see, and that will is great. But until someone tells you that you must come and see this. And that's why we have these promotional videos of people like Perlman and Billy Crystal and Carol Burnett, everyone came to see the show in New York, everybody. So we took advantage and we asked them for testimonials. So we have all those testimonials. So but it's the Pshita person too. It's not just the celebrity that comes. It's the regular Joe who comes and is blown away by it. And that's what I'm hoping will happen with the theater community as well. So after people start to come see it on Monday.
Zalmen, when you meet people like Billy Crystal, who's Jewish, after, let's say, coming out of the theater, I don't know if you met him then, do you find that there's something a bit more Jewish about them once they've seen the play?
I think I couldn't say that, but I could say that it touches everybody in that way. Everybody who is touched by it, when you see, we have a whole slew of people, who don't identify themselves so much as Jewish, or whatever, and many of the stars who came were not Jewish, of course. I think it opens up the story of the Jewish experience in a different way. That's thanks to Fiddler. That's thanks to the originators of Fiddler. But the hearing it in the Yiddish, even if you don't understand the word, just hearing it and being able to see it and seeing these committed performances, that's why it became such a huge word of mouth show, because people were saying that they've never seen anything quite like that. So I'm hoping that same magic happens, after Monday, first performance.
You've managed, as I mentioned, to put together a wonderful cast, and your director is Joel Grey, who's a legendary actor, singer, dancer, and director, best known for his iconic role as Master of Ceremonies in Cabaret. That's quite a score. Wow, well done on getting Joel. What was it like to work with him?
Joel was great. Joel, the first day of rehearsal, he had everybody do the scenes in English first.
Yeah.
And all these actors were struggling so hard and preparing for the first day to be able to do the Yiddish. So the Yiddish was in their head. And then he asked them to do it in English on the spot. So it was quite a challenge, but he needed to do it that way because he wanted to get at the truth. And because his first language, while he heard Yiddish and Yiddish in the house, he didn't really use it as a day-to-day language. So he wanted to get to the truth with the actors through English, and then we would do each scene over again in Yiddish. He was the actors will tell you, who worked with him, what an inspiration he was. He was always respectful, always wanting to know their point of view, and wanting to get at the honesty. That was the key for him, and of this production, of the honesty of the portrayals on the stage. He wanted to see real people. He didn't want to hear caricatures. He didn't want to hear stereotypes. He wanted to see real people. And that's, while he's not present with us in the rehearsal, we did introduce him to the cast on the first day of rehearsal, and he's watching rehearsals remotely from California. Our three associate directors in the room, the choreographer, the assistant, my colleague Muttel, who did all the Yiddish coaching, are taking from his direction, remembering his desires, and putting them into place. And of course, we have Steven Skybell, our Tevye, who wowed us. When we first auditioned in New York, we had over 2,500 applicants for 25 roles. We auditioned 700 of them, and I would say maybe 100 Tevyes, wannabes, right? And Joel and I looked at each other after he sang a little bit of Rich Man, and just knew immediately that this is somebody this is an actor. An actor is a student of Shakespeare, a teacher of Shakespeare, somebody who has worked on Broadway, et cetera, and had this respect for Yiddish. He always wanted to be in the Yiddish theater. I said, was that just the line? He said, no. I knew about the Yiddish theater's contribution to the American theater, and I always thought of myself, because I heard Yiddish growing up as a kid in Texas, is the interesting thing, that I wanted to somehow connect with it. So when he got the role, and there wasn't a day in rehearsal or in performance, and still to this very day, 8 years later, before he goes on for any scene, for any show, he'll just run the lines to say them again, so that they're in his muscle memory, so that it's completely there, and you see that in his performance. And what it does is his level of commitment inspires the others to work harder, to work really even harder to get the detail that we're looking for to come to the truth. So it's been, he's been an integral part of the process.
Those aha moments when you're casting must be magnificent, aren't they?
Yeah, of course.
They must be something.
We had them with this cast. There were over 500 people from Canada, all over Canada, applying for this role, for these 24 openings, and we did it mostly by submission, by recordings at first, and then we screened them, and then we came up to Toronto and saw the people that we wanted to see in person. And it was quite exciting to see some of them, do their thing in person after having seen them. After having seen them on tape.
We're a young nation, and we're somewhat shy as a people. And I'm wondering, when you're casting in Canada, do you see that at all, the Canadian character, and think to yourself, okay, how am I going to work with that? How am I going to open these folks up?
Absolutely. Without question. I noticed it from the beginning, and I notice it now. I'm noticing it in all my interactions with Canadians who, have this. There's an Ehrlichkeit. There's a I don't know how
Warmth.
you say it. There's a warmth. There's a easygoingness. There's a not there. There isn't the fire that a New Yorker has. There isn't the drive. In some cases that we see it very much in New Yorkers. But I have to say that these actors, we're working with all these New York people, kind of, urging them on, and each one of them has come out, has blossomed, and they're professional, how to do it, but so that it's honest. There's a beauty to that, to the Canadian, gestalt that I appreciate, and maybe it's the same thing with them buying tickets. They're not so sure that it's not so. But I want to impress on people that we're only here for 2 weeks, and that's not a lot of performances. It's a lot of seats, but I think once the word gets out, people are it's gonna become a ticket that people wanted to come to.
Oh, I think word's going to travel. I think people will hear how magnificent it is. I'm already hearing it as I dabble, through my social media. Zalmen, let me ask you a question. Many of us, many Jewish people, feel like emissaries out in the world, shlichim, as we call it in Hebrew. Is your position within Fiddler on the Roof, within Yiddish music, out there in the world, people knowing who you are, who who are not Jewish, many of them, Do you feel like a Jewish emissary as you go through this?
Without question, Avrum. I feel like not only am I, you know, I wear my I wear my Yiddishkeit very openly. You know, sometimes it manifests itself with my covering my head, so that so that people are aware of that in me. But more, I hope in my truth in dealing with people,
Yeah.
and knowing that I want the best possible outcome here. So I can be pushy. I can be somewhat of a nudge,
Yeah.
as it were, and I'm aware of it. But I am doing it for an important purpose. My purpose is that I know that I have something here that people will respond to, and once they see it. And so I and connect with their Yiddishkeit in a way that they never did, or be in their Yiddishkeit, or be interested in Yiddishkeit for the first time. I have people in this cast who, are assimilated Jews, and of course many who are not. So who are asking me, okay, what is Shavuos? Why are you bringing in cheesecakes this week for the
Right.
cast?
Right.
Which I am. Because I want them to have a little bit of yantiv. I want them to know that, during the week while they're working, Jews all over the world, are in shul celebrating that they got this code of laws and code of ethics to live by, and
Yeah.
and
Totally.
Jews have lived by for thousands of years. So I'm happy to do that, and I consider it a privilege that I
Well
get
done.
to be able
Well
to
done.
do that.
Zalmen, I mentioned to you before we went to air that I started in a Jewish humanitarian organization, and part of our work was getting out into the street on a van that was very high profile Jewish, helping the homeless, didn't matter what their background was. And we've been doing that for 30 years now. To me, one of the reasons to launch Via Hafta, the organization, was as a way of fighting anti Semitism. In other words, to let people out there see the beauty of our people. And I'm wondering, in the crevices of your mind, do you ever think to yourself, Fiddler on the Roof, an exquisite production? Like you said, likely a day hasn't gone by other than COVID where it hasn't been produced and acted out. Is this in some way a way of showing the beauty of our people, of fighting anti Semitism?
Without question, when I speak to donors, and that's basically how a nonprofit works. It's the support of individuals and people who believe in that. I tell them that your contribution, you're helping us make this happen, is not just a a supporter of the arts, a supporter of the something for our people. You're showing people one of the most you know most popular stories that has resonated for every people, for every nationality, all over the world. And here it is, we're presenting this piece as a sign, as an indication of the humanity of Yiddishkeit and the humanity of who we are as a people. We're not we're not land mongers. We're not war mongers. We want to live as Jews, as everybody else wants to live as Jews. And here is an example of a family who wanted to live as Jews and were expelled from their home by the Ukrainians, the Cossacks at the time. To be able to show that journey and to show how people lived that journey and survived that journey is inspiring for others to see. So without question, I consider myself an emissary. I feel that my board is on my board because they feel the same way. that this is more. It's not just about Yiddish theater. It's not just about hearing Yiddish. It's about bringing our culture and bringing the ethics of our culture to the widest audience.
You're a proud Jew.
I am a proud Jew.
Yeah, you very much are. Very much are.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. You exude it.
Thank you.
I once interviewed Neshama Karbach. I don't know if you know her or not.
Of course.
Shlomo Karbach's daughter.
Of course,
Yeah.
I know Neshama, and I worked with Shlomo in his later years.
Okay, there you go.
I had this chus to accompany him on a couple of concerts.
Fascinating man he was. Controversial, but fascinating.
And I'm definitely a chassid of his.
Yeah,
Follower of his. Yeah.
I asked Neshama to sing a song on our show, and she did. And one of the lyrics in the song was something along the lines of "Yibi bibi bibi boo." And I said to her, I said, Neshama, are those lyrics? And she said, absolutely, they're lyrics. How do you describe the "Yibi bibi boos" in the songs in Fiddler?
Without question, they're the unspoken words. The words that you don't have words for. They're the feelings that you don't have words for. When in the iconic Yabba Bubba Bubba Bum Ishman, that's his fantasizing about all of his, what it might be, and he doesn't have the words. So you hear it in Yabba Bubba Bubba Bum. Yeah.
So the description that I got of the bums, they imitate the emotional rhythms and vocal stylings often heard in traditional Eastern European Jewish singing. The emotional rhythms and the vocal stylings, you find them in prayer chantings and shul, especially on Yom Kippur, and Hasidic nigunim. You'll find it within the songs of the Hasidim, right?
Without question. That's for sure. That makes total sense to me. Yeah.
At the end of the production, after all the work that you've done, I'm sure that your relationship with Tevye and his wife Golde and their 5 girls evolves. Where would you say today is your connection to that family? Where do they sit inside your neshama, inside your soul?
We all deal with children. We all have, deal with children and the what we want for our children and what we, and we hope for our children, and that we how protective we are, and I think, and I when I look at the evolution of Tevye and his daughters, and he reckoned with it. He reckoned with the changes. He reckoned with the change because humanity, because from a humanity perspective, he couldn't do anything else. It was his flesh and blood. I subscribe to that. I look at my children and my children's choices, and thank God, I have no issues with them. But I want them to live full lives. I want them to be happy and do what's best for them. But on another level, Avrum, I see the story as this universal story, that of parents and children, and parents and children's choices, and how love must still be there, even with choices and differences of opinions with families. And I hope that it's a lesson for families and for people to look at, that yes, we have different, we may have different beliefs, your children, your neighbor, whatever, but in the end, you want to love them. You want, you want to love your children. You want to love your friend, your friend, and your neighbor. There's no, but we'll have differences of opinions, and to be able to see that and to see how one person deals with it and struggles with it, I think is an eye-opening thing and something to be taken from the show.
Yeah, I mean, what's fascinating about what you're saying is, and you mentioned it a few minutes back, is you said in Japan, this is a Japanese story. Bringing
Right.
it to Canada,
Right.
the Canadians who come there who are not Jewish will
Yeah.
watch it and they'll go, yeah, there's aspects of this in my life. This is a Canadian story.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. It happens it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Over the last little while, I've been asking AI to develop poems about my guests. So if you don't mind, I have an ode to Fiddler on the Roof and Zalmen Mlotek.
Wow.
And it goes this way. Fiddler on the Roof is not merely a musical, it is the sound of civilization trying to hold on to its soul. In the tiny village of Anatevka, Tevye, the milkman, walks the muddy roads, speaking to God between moments of exhaustion and hope, trying to keep balance in a world slowly coming apart. His daughters dream beyond tradition, love challenges custom. The old world trembles beneath new ideas, and beyond the rooftop, history gathers like a storm. Yet life continues. Candles glow in the darkened homes, bread is broken at crowded tables, mothers sing softly, fathers bless their children, with ancient words trembling across generations. Above it all stands the fiddler, fragile, swaying, determined, drawing music from uncertainty itself. And when this story is performed in Yiddish, something extraordinary happens. The play no longer feels remember, it feels returned. The language carries the heartbeat of vanished streets, of grandparents, of prayers, of laughter echoing through Jewish marketplaces now gone silent. At the center of this remarkable revival stands Zalmen Mlotek, one of the great guardians of Jewish cultural memory. Through theater, melody, and devotion, he has helped rescue an endangered world from disappearance. Under his care, Yiddish does not survive as nostalgia alone, it breathes again. An audience everywhere discover that beneath this deeply Jewish story lies something very universal, the human struggle to hold on to family, to hold on to faith, dignity, and love while the world changes around us.
Wow.
Yeah, that's for you.
Wow. That's amazing.
That is for you, my friend.
That's AI, or
Yeah.
that's from Rosensweig.
No, that's AI. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
You're a good man. I sense your softness through the screen, and I appreciate that very much.
Thank
Your
you. I
parents did a good
appreciate
job.
that.
Your parents did a good job on you.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
When are you
You're
coming
welcome.
so I can, give you a shalom aleichem?
I'm going to give you
Come
a
to
hug, Solomon.
Come Monday night. Get the audience the first night. So you get the be my guest.
Thank you.
Your son, please tell him I'd love to meet him.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invite. Let's
Take
just
me
do
on it later.
Thank you. Let's do a quick synopsis on the show itself. Give us the dates, tell us where it's showing, and how people can get tickets.
It's showing. I don't know if you can see this.
Yep.
It's showing it at the Elgin Theater. That's the
Yep.
Elgin Winter Garden Theater. It opens Monday, May 25th, and it plays through June 7th. The official opening is Thursday the 28th, but we have opening performances on Monday the 25th, Tuesday the 26th. We have two shows. We have a matinee on Wednesday the 27th, and I know that there are tickets. And The show looks gorgeous in the theater. I don't have a picture to show you, but the set looks gorgeous. And we have our sound designer coming from New York to work with the excellent Canadian sound designer here. And and the super titles are big from everywhere, from the balcony. They're big and easy to read. So for those who are still worried and say, well, I don't understand Yiddish, no excuse. There's big English super titles and Russian if they prefer. So,
and folks, I'd like to add to that it's not a simple time for us Jewish people, and I think that theater like Fiddler on the Roof can bring a lot of joy to us. It can bring a lot of nachas, a lot of Jewish pride, and I really encourage people to get out to the show, bring their family, bring their friends, Jewish, not Jewish, it doesn't matter, and partake in something which is magnificent, and you're not likely going to see it again, at least not in Toronto. So make every effort to do that. And for any information that you need,
joy.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of what you have accomplished.
Thank you. Thank you.
What your team.
I want to thank my friend Linda.
It's absolutely magnificent.
I want to thank my friend Linda Krar, who, an old friend from Teaneck, who put us together and made the introduction. I'm very grateful to her, and just wonderful to meet you. And I hope you'll come Monday as my guest.
Thank you. Yeah. If you need something to get done, Linda will do it. Folks, I want to thank everybody for joining us, for watching us, for viewing us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. My email is at the bottom of the screen. And I look forward to seeing you at Fiddler on the Roof, a very auspicious, momentous theater production that is here in town. Until then, as my mother used to say, God bless her soul, sei gesund, go in good health. And it's right before Shavuot, so Chag Sameach, have a beautiful holiday, and we will meet again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Avrum.